All right. Yeah, that's what this pile. Yeah, I don't think that's necessary.
Hi, everybody. Sorry to yell so loudly, but want to get your attention. We have our next speaker coming up, and our gold sponsor, Fusion, is speaking, but with Jonathan Hartmann and Mike from BDO, and they're going to tell you more about themselves individually because they could do it better than we can. So, over to you.
Hi, I'm Jonathan again. Still Jonathan, that's right. Haven't changed in the hours that we've been here. As I mentioned before, I work for Fusion. I'm part of our financial services and insurance practice. I'm on the revenue side today, but I've been with Fusion for 6 years. And part of the reason why I'm presenting this today is one, to see if I can compare to what Tracy Rice presented at the Spring Summit around ESG, probably a huge challenge. So we'll see how that turns out. But also because as I've been at Fusion, I've seen a lot of our clients really grow and mature their programs. And I also had the benefit of working with many people on our product marketing team, as well as our subject matter expertise on the product side, working with industry analysts, working with professional organizations to take kind of industry knowledge about risk and resilience and the trends that are happening in the marketplace, and how does that translate into actual things that you can take back to your organization. So excited to share that with y'all today, and I'll hand it over to Mike, our partner in crime.
Hi, I'm Mike Geier with BDO. Work in our forensic data practice. Sounds probably a little strange, but we kind of look at risk and resiliency as part of a larger practice that also involves insurance and claims. So I've worked with about 200-ish customers on their resiliency programs over the years, and hear what you guys have to say there. So thanks for letting me join.
So Mike's a good friend of mine. We worked together for the 6 years that I've been at Fusion. He has a really great background, tons of customer stories. So ask him all the hard questions, is what that means. I do like to make all of my presentations interactive. So I'm going to try my best not to talk at challenge our slides, ask questions. I may ask questions about what you all think. That's kind of the whole purpose of CPO, right? Is for us to all learn from each other and not just have a couple of talking heads up here really giving you the down low about what's going on within risk and resilience. But today we're going to talk about maturing risk and resilience programs, what some of the market drivers are behind what we're seeing in risk and resilience, maybe lessons learned from the past couple of years in terms of disruption and how the industry is changing. We'll walk through the 5 stages of the maturity model. This is actually a build off of a partnership that we conducted with GRC 2020. Michael Rasmussen is kind of the guy that founded that group up there. So some of the terminology and some of the model is his, but it also translates well to how we see clients progressing, especially from just getting started to kind of the North Star, if you will. And then lastly, maybe give some advice about how to measure where you are in terms of your program maturity and things that you can take, some actionable slides that you can take back to your organization to actually drive that maturity forward. Sound like a good plan? Okay, excellent. So, first things first. What do you all think has been the biggest thing in the last couple of years that has changed the way that A, you operate, B, you get buy-in from your leadership team, and C, you get budget for your organization function? COVID, okay, great. What? Ransomware. Ransomware, yep, absolutely. That's another one. Anything else? Say it again. BEC, business email compromise. Okay.
Cloud.
Can you be a little bit more specific? Can you kind of build on that a little bit?
Cloud operations and resilience.
So on the transition to cloud.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Geopolitical changes? Absolutely. Anybody else have any thoughts about what's really driving change and how your day-to-day has changed?
Even just growth of digital and e-commerce online.
Yeah,
I mean,
business is transformed, right? So fundamentally, right, the idea behind why risk and resilience programs need to mature is because of ever-present change, right? Disruption is kind of business as usual. as IT organizations have migrated to the cloud, right, new factors come into play that can potentially disrupt that technology, right? IT is no longer looked at as that cost center, but that business driver and that business transformer. So with that comes new complexity, new dependencies, and new potential disruptions that can happen. I'm surprised nobody talked about climate change or weather, right? Regardless of why we think it's happening, where we work, how we work, the frequency at which temperatures or weather events can disrupt operations and supply chain, right? We've seen that be a huge factor as well. And then building off of what Alice said, right? What Brian said, that digital transformation of how our businesses work. I know it's kind of difficult to see some of the things on the slide here, but these trend analyses that you're seeing shows the increased frequency and severity at which we're seeing disruption affect our clients, our organizations, and how we deliver our products and services.
And we'll show.
Yeah, we'll share the slides.
Quick question, how much of that is dependence on technology? A growing dependence on technology?
I mean, objectively, I can't speak to how much disruption is tied to the dependence on technology, but I mean, my gut is that pretty much everything, right? I mean, if you think about how people work, where they work remotely, how we manage information across geographies, how our supply chains communicate with each other, right? At the end of the day, technology is the driver by which people get their jobs done these days. So, I mean, I think it's a fair question, but probably a pretty high number.
So something that we always look to is, what are the insurers doing? They have the biggest data sets you can ever imagine. Cyber insurance increases are outpacing every other insurance. It's just been crazy in the last 4 years. So I think we are, seeing that technology is becoming a bigger and bigger risk for everybody.
And technology doesn't necessarily always mean cyber technology, right? If you're in manufacturing, if you're in transportation, you may not have the most leading system, but it still has that potential exposure, right? But we know that if we want to gain more efficiencies with our manufacturing operations, we know that if we want to gain more efficiencies in production and shipping and logistics, technology has to keep up with that. More and more, right, as things are connected, that does open up, right, more likelihood of cyber-oriented risk, but it also adds a layer of complexity to how people conduct work that can be disrupted in new and interesting ways, right? So fundamentally, and you'll kind of see this on the next slide, but the lesson learned, disruption for folks in this room and for our customers is very much a business as usual, right? There's no status quo kind of thing. What does everyone think are some other lessons learned coming out of the last 2.5, 3 years, pretty prevalent disruption before I do a big reveal slide?
Just what it said, there was a worldwide internet outage last summer. So here in Columbus, we're on WOW cable, and I think AT&T, because of that change that happened. We actually had an activated business continuity for team members at our flight center that if they were impacted, to go into the office. Who would have thought something like that?
So kind of back to the reliance on technology, right? And also maybe third-party providers that provide access to the tools and technology that we need. So that's one. That's number 5 on the list. They're not staggering or anything, but any other things? Yeah.
Well, building on that, supply chain and the dependence on technology and the exponential rate of change. Change was slower, and now it's like instead of it day by day, it's second by second. Yeah, exactly.
So change in response to disruption, right?
Right. Multiple issues constantly.
So what does that mean, right? What do we have to be able to do as public companies, private entities, things that organizations, enterprises that service customers? If we're seeing that more frequency of change and issues, what does that require that we do as a business? Yeah, spot on. Have to adapt. You have to change. Your objectives have to change. Maybe even your business model has to change, right? I mean, you think about companies that rely solely or primarily on brick and mortar, right? Retail, getting customers into stores. Well, if you can't do that, or people's buying or consumption habits are changing, we need to absolutely pivot, put the model on its head about how this looks.
I think with COVID, that one thing that I saw with a lot of people I know is when you're looking at companies that were in the cloud and easier to 2,000 that were all on struggle, and then you had supply chain issues. But if you're thinking about the cybersecurity perspective, it's one thing to have everyone inside your four walls. Now you're almost managing. You're 10,000
Yes.
because some of them are using devices, and you have families. How can you get them to know we're not supposed to have kids on our iPhones, all that they do? Yeah, I mean they find
called
them,
life.
and so yeah, it is. So I think that really has to be about what's the system like, how to manage it, because there's not really security tools protect it more. So,
Well, and if you need to respond to changes in the marketplace, right, by bringing in the most important talent, what's the best way for you to be able to have access to the largest talent pool? Remote work from home.
Oh, yeah.
Everywhere. So if you can do that, right, and you now part of your business model is not containing things within those four walls, you're accepting risk, you're accepting complexity, you're accepting more entry points for potential disruption into your business. But it's not, it's by choice, right? It's a potentially a competitive advantage for you.
So for anybody that kind of had that scenario, did you shift your program to start tracking where people are at home, what ISPs they have, what backup, what their mobile network they use, that kind of stuff?
No. We moved to a zero trust model from a security perspective. We have
Fair enough.
to.
Yeah, no, you have to. Yeah. But from like just an access model, right?
Yeah.
So like the zero trust is great, but they can't even get online.
Yeah, right.
Distributions. Something to think about. We have a customer that's what we did. What would they do?
Yeah.
So throwing some things on here, and I think everyone really kind of pulled it all together, right? We talked about disruption as the new business as usual. We talked about how our objectives, right, and what we're trying to accomplish as a business needs to change based upon this new business as usual disruption environment. We talked about resilience and risk and how they're interconnected, right? If we want to maintain continuity of operations, we have to think about these new and emerging risks from ways that we're having our business objectives be dynamic. Reliance on third parties, obviously brought that up in terms of service providers, technology providers, supply chain, pretty obvious, right? And then I think lastly, and what we're going to focus on today and what the point is that in order to continue providing services, not only do we have to change our business model, we have to be a lot more agile, right, in terms of the flexibility of what it takes to have that business model operate. So pause there. Is this jiving with everybody? A lot of head nods. If I'm telling y'all things that you already know or that are redundant, please let me know. If you want to challenge this, we'll fast forward for sure. Okay, cool. So if their disruption is the new business as usual, right? And we've got all these lessons learned about how we need to grow and mature and what we need to think about in terms of our risk and resilience programs, right? How do we kind of chart a path forward? How do we set that North Star, right, for where we're going to go and how we're going to adapt our program to address these business models? Okay. So in our opinion, what we've seen and what a lot of our clients are focusing on is this concept of operational resilience. It's a buzzword. Means a lot of things to a lot of different people, but for us, fundamentally, it means this, right? It's the ability to prevent, adapt, respond, recover, and learn from operational disruptions with the intention of continuing to focus on your ability to deliver products and services to your customer. Why is that good? Payroll. Say it again. Payroll. Can't deliver products and services. We don't have a company. We can't pay people. Nobody gets to buy Christmas presents or holiday presents, right? What else?
Protects your brand. Sure. You keep the trust with your customers.
Yeah, if you're focused on continuing to support your customer, it's probably going to help you retain and bring in additional customers, building off of what App said back there.
Better you are at it, better.
Absolutely. If we could give a number about how resilient we were, maybe other folks would want to do business with us. Maybe our insurance rates could go down. Maybe we could retain top talent. So providing them with resources they need to do their jobs.
Our markets are demanding it. Our customers are mandating it, or they won't do business with us. They want evidence that we're resilient.
Couple of healthcare providers to be literal life and death, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you're part of critical infrastructure, 16 sectors, right? Single organization could have, if Amazon goes down, catastrophic.
The world, yeah.
Kroger goes down, what happens, right? People start.
And that is where you start to see regulation coming in from all over the place, right? And that's why operational resilience, at least in the way that we're kind of talking to our clients about it, is not necessarily about just knowing that we can bounce back, but it's also that first piece of it, right? That prevention, that detection, that understanding of where the most likely vulnerabilities and threats are. And if we understand how our business works and where it might break, right, we can be a little bit more proactive about preventing those things, but we can also still have those resilient strategies to be able to bounce back faster if when it happens. So, big goal, how easy is it to do? Mike and I kind of like sliced and diced our slides. This is a Mike slide. Mike, you want to take a look at, or you want to share some of the things that you're hearing from clients?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm sure it's going to echo in this room is that these are all great lofty goals. It's not always easy. Things that we typically see when we come in and start working with the customer is that they might be doing all the right things. It's just that they're not talking. The different teams aren't coordinated. They're not talking to each other. There might be some kind of emotional things that have happened in the past. You never know. So, that's one of the big things is that we get to come in and kind of see everything from the sky view. That really helps us, kind of chart the course on how we can start combining a lot of the things that are already going well within an organization to start to have everything work together as one well-oiled machine. What we do find is that there's often a lot of similar work and similar data being gathered kind of around an organization. We help, we kind of, we'll get to this a little bit later, but we take a slightly different approach. Typically when we start working with the customer is that we really focus on the insurance piece and work our way out. So a lot of the times we'll come into an organization, work with the insurance team to see kind of if their portfolio is managed and leveraged correctly and where we could get real gains. Some of those you were talking about, speaking the big acumen. The executive team only cares about increasing revenues, decreasing costs, and decreasing risk, which is really just their ability to do the first two things. So if you can come in with a story that is with an investment in your resiliency activities, we can save $10 million. These are real numbers, $10 million on our insurance portfolio. You will get that $1 million. So we typically will come into an insurance portfolio assessment that will help you get on a path to lowering your premiums, frees up budget for the resilience things that we want to do. So really, it's the coordination is a big thing. Not having the right technology in place is another one. You need leverage to do this job. It is. I come from a background of working for like Salesforce, where we're working with sales teams with huge budgets. That is not the space from what I've seen over the last 9-10 years. So finding that budget and being creative on getting that funding, I think that kind of coming at it with this insurance savings is a great way of being really successful in that. So happy to talk to anybody about that wants to kind of talk through that, your organization, that process.
I have a question. So
Yeah.
are you seeing some of the marketplace?
Yep.
Are you seeing that?
We are seeing that, yes, absolutely. So, and that's where we have relationships with a lot of the carriers and can help you navigate how to position yourself so that you can get this insurance. And that is kind of one of the caveats of you can increase your resiliency spending and activities to get that policy.
So the thing that resonated the most with me, because I'm like, keep it simple, like, what are we going to talk about? If I had to present this to a leader within my organization who said, hey, business resilience, we're fine. We got ranks, right? Somebody came in and assessed the maturity of our program. And they said, we're good. Like, why do we need to do more, right? What are we trying to accomplish with this operational resilience thing, right? Why should we focus on important business services, products and services that we bring to the market? So these are the three sort of benefits, right? Or organizational value adds that we talk to our customers about and that we think are critical, right? And being able to get that buy-in and make it simple, right? Every executive cares about customers. Your point, it's what pays the bills, what keeps the lights on, right? So put them at the center, right? And regulators in financial services and insurance, and increasingly even just the Department of Justice want to have organizations assure that you're going to be able to continue delivering something to the marketplace. If you have a breach, right? You may have 24 hours to report it, right? So when we put our customer at the center, it not only aligns with what our executive groups and our boards care about, but also aligns to where regulators are starting to go. Most organizations understand the products and services that they bring to the marketplace. So it simplifies your ability to say, this is what we need to do. This is where we need to measure risk. This is what we need to build resilience plans or resilience strategies against, right? Rather than getting down in the nitty gritty of talking about processes and approvals, we can really level this up to speak the language within the business, right? And then kind of the last sort of benefit, right, is it allows the business to take ownership of all those details longer term. It's all in the context of delivering integrated risk and resilience to that first line so that they're better at anticipating what they need and planning for what they need to do instead of following a blueprint or looking at a reference document each time they have something. They know what they need to do to recover. Let's give them the information they need to do. If you want to get even further down, let's talk about the individual benefits that it kind of cuts across 4 key stakeholder areas. So your board, right? How many people would like to be able to report to their board percentage of their annual revenue that they can confidently say is resilient against disruption? You give them one number, like 87% of all the money we made last year, we feel confident that those systems are resilient against disruption. That'd be a meaningful statistic to be able to level up to your organization's highest levels of leadership. Shareholders to be able to report that in a sustainability report every year. Or improve it, right? Because you'd rather know what you don't. So if you can benchmark and test that year over year, well, doing it in the context of a service, right? You have to understand that service and the revenue associated with that. We've already talked about kind of really, for lack of a better term, beating a dead horse on executive decision making, but informing folks about the stuff that they care most, which is to have that right information at their fingertips. For all the practitioners in here, it obviously raises the level of value and it clarifies value to bring it back to your organization. And then lastly, we talk about those frontline business units. It strengthens the relationship. It gives them information back. Hey, this vendor that you rely on for printing all of the change policies that you're required by regulators to send out to your customers that still don't want like digital stuff, right? You have one print vendor that does all that stuff. If you cut checks, it's that same vendor. Those are kind of 2 key things. So just giving them that visibility and integrating data between kind of those 2 disciplines and having those groups talk to each other gives more value and information back to the business units that are responsible for that stuff.
All of this really relies on having this really robust integrated data model and data foundation that you can do all of this work on. Any piece of data, I want it to work 5 times for me. That's sort of my rule when I'm designing a solution with a customer. I recently had a customer, very large, perhaps the largest. We were doing fully in data model simulations for impacts of hurricanes. Was all able to be done in Fusion. And it was real world possible scenarios that within minutes I was able to work with them to identify what their potential hits were for every single available simulation. We track that through. So it's 5 miles this way, $100 million hit this way, swiping out all of our properties in Miami, much bigger value, things like that. So we're very quickly able to see what potential loss, how many many people were at those locations, both employees and guests. So being able to have this digital model that you can play around with really can take your programs to the next level. And you're really offering like very strategic guidance to the executive team. Then at that point, it's, you know, you're giving that predictive sort of intelligence in the situation. Pause there. Going down a good path. Feel free to take that slide and take it to all four of those stakeholders to kind of justify getting additional budget and what you think your program is. So now that we've kind of understood about what we want to focus on, the value that it brings, and how we can maybe articulate it to those stakeholders, this is kind of the 5-stage risk and resilience maturity model. The tiny print doesn't translate very well over to this, so we'll share this afterwards. But functionally, right, and I heard this from a few different folks in the room, we're starting out at the bottom with this sort of ad hoc, very reactive, we got to pull something together just to meet an audit, or even just if somebody says, what would we do here, right? Very little governance, maybe one department's asking about this, but not a ton of resources. We're kind of addressing risk and resilience questions whenever they come up. Versus the next one, which sounds a little bit like what some folks are walking into as they start in organizations with, which is a program that's fragmented. We have some really great parts of the business that are bought in, right? There's a little bit of a roadmap, right? We're in that sophomore stage where we know that we're going to come back around, but we're still really focused in on some of the tactical stuff, and we're still siloed across the different. Having a defined program is where I think most organizations are, right? There's program management, management program processes, different roles and responsibilities are defined. We're doing some ongoing reporting. We're sharing information with key stakeholders. Our assessments are starting to mature. We've got some oversight. The big thing is we're still at that kind of department level, right? We haven't been able to cross-cut across the enterprise. Where I think most organizations want to go, and if we want to accomplish this idea of defining the risk profile of our service and then adding resiliency to address it, is this sort of integrated aspect, right? How do we get a sort of board level agreed governance model to roll down to this? It might take 2.5 years being in that defined stage, but you're making that steady progress on the journey that we've heard a lot of folks talk about. We're cataloging risks, building registers as per apps, and then we're starting to kind of break down those silos, improving communication between business resilience and DR, maybe talking to our third-party management or our third-party governance team, really understanding various operational risks, right? We're starting to pull all that information together and really collaborate with those different stakeholders. And then the last phase of the maturity model is truly being agile to leverage all that data and information to consistently report on the health, resiliency of your organization, and then just continuing and elevating what your risk and resilience program is in terms of a differentiator, right? Using it. Well, I mean, yeah, that's good. I just want to get that example. With this customer, really we leverage Fusion as our technology platform. He had done a lot of the great strategy work. So when he walked into his role, it was non-existent. And he took that, they were still responding to crises when things come up. But took, about a year and a half to really put together what his vision for the program was. And he laid out, activities along all of these different capabilities here. But I think what the main lesson learned from what he did, it takes energy to move from each chevron. So, and if you kind of pause or stop, you roll backwards very quickly. So you need to carry this momentum, as you progress through these different stages of your development. But what he did was able to really internally sell the program, get buy-in from his other leaders around the organization, helped consolidate everybody's activities so that we were saving money. We had a better view of the organization. We had a full digital model of what they did. And then we really shifted from, we then took another cut and said, how do we truly be agile? Well, we need data more regularly, and we need to connect more systems into our data model So we went on the process of connecting all of these near real-time systems into Fusion. And then we put together a program that didn't require training. So you engages 1,400 business leaders around the organization on a quarterly basis. You never train anybody. You receive an email, takes you to a link, you walk through a wizard, all of the instructions, pictures, pointy arrows on the screen. You provide the information that and you're done. So he's gathering BC and technology impact assessments like constantly. So he has a really, really robust data model. As things come in, new services come online, they turn off, he knows exactly what's impacted and report that to his board.
So that's a baseline for being able to say, hey, we've tested these applications. These applications are tested every quarter. And in order for us to say any stream of revenue that's supported by this application, if it hasn't been tested within our frame of reference, it kind of decreases the resiliency score of that stream. And then that information gets presented to their leadership. So if you're responsible for that application, or if you're responsible for that stream and your resilience score has gone down right away, right? We know it's not the resilience program manager's fault that you're not doing what you need to do. We have to ask if there's a justifiable reason why your resilience score has gone down. So resilience is really viewed as a differentiator. It's something that each individual owner of a revenue stream or each individual owner of a product within an organization can drive that down and differentiate themselves not only internally, but to outside parties. And it's not easy, right? That's why it's a journey. It takes time, it takes energy, but that justification, right, that rationale that we've all kind of been sharing, being able to do that is kind of the big thing. So kind of what are the things that we can do to drive finding? Girl likes like that.
So this is, kind of really when I start working with a customer, I always want to move them from the administrative tactical world into, actually generating value for your organization. So, there's really no value in the actual gathering of the data. Just put it out there. There isn't, but we need it, right? So, and there's no, value in the following up and the nagging and all of that stuff. So how do we move past all of that? So really, what I found successful is utilizing technology to do that. So anything that's repetitive, and brings no value, that's my first look to automate. And I know you all mentioned it as well. So we really, kind of analyze what the program needs are and what we need to get accomplished, and really identify those areas where we can make changes to take the extra energy out of it. So things like, sending out the emails on clients, what needs to get done, building, wizards so that people can enter in their data without any intervention from you. And this, is very scalable then, right? So no matter how big your organization is, if you have a very easy, wizard-based TurboTax, none of us get trained on that kind of stuff, right? We just know how to do it. If you take that user-centered design when you're thinking about how to communicate with your customer, your internal folks, you can take a lot of that busy work out of there. The clients and the training always are like the #1 time sinks for everyone. So, but what you get is good data on a more regular basis that allows you to put together different, analyses of that data. That's really what your leadership needs to do. I always say to look at your program as its own business. You need to serve your customers and provide a good product. And then also you need to kind of prove your worth to your investors. That's your executive team. So if you kind of start to think in that way on how to design your program, we find a lot of success that way.
And before we go down a pathway of you must use software for this, or you must calculate, right? Think about your day-to-day and charting the activities that you all are spending. How much of that time is spent on administrative stuff, how much of it is spent on the stuff you want to do, and how much of it is spent on the things that your leadership wants you to do. And if you can categorize that, and you can start to build a maturity model of here's how I can reduce each of these bar graphs, here's what it would take for me to get more of what you're asking for, right? Just be transparent and objective about what you're doing and what it's going to take to get you to do what you want to do, right? That's really kind of the point of this slide is if you're not spending your time in a very useful, productive, value-add way to your organization, be transparent about it and tell that organization what it is that you need, and demonstrate what that value is. Because at the end, yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good. You're good. On strategic and innovative, is it business strategic or strategic within the DC domain? Same question.
Totally. So I would argue that it should be both, because anything strategic within your business resilience program should be aligned to the strategic goals of the organization, which is also delivering on which in this context, being able to deliver our products and services. That may be bringing something new to market, that may be opening up a new market and understanding what it takes to support opening up that new market and the associated risks and strategies that we have to have in place because of that. Going back to changing business models, right? You're a retailer, you know, long-term, you may want to engage with your customers more directly. If you're an insurer, you may want to engage with them more directly. There's a reason why Allstate sells markets are aggressive, and it's not because they have better marketing available, right? It's their business model in that direction. So if you're going to make that shift, right, what you do from a resiliency and risk perspective has to be aligned to where that change is. Is that helpful? Yeah, perfect. So invest your time wisely, but be honest about what you're spending time on, and then tell your leadership about what you can do to use that time more productively. Because the answer is not going to be right away, I need another FTE, right? They're going to look for internal efficiencies. So I love this one, but I'm going to let
So this is something that we work with our customers on as well. Does everybody have like an identity of your program within your organization? Do you call yourself something, or are you all the business continuity team? Okay, yeah. So yeah, yeah. So what we do, kind of along that same lines of really bringing the value is bringing branding to what you do, and you know, kind of really making your program and what you help your end users with be sticky. So we'll do this with a lot of customers. We'll go through a series of workshops to kind of look at what your values are as an organization, what business you're in, what you as a group are trying to accomplish. We put together a series of images, brand identity, hashtags, even like this, so that when anyone sees this within your organization, they're like, oh, those are the people that helped me when something bad has happened. When something bad happens. So this is an example of something we did with a chemical company. Beryllium, I guess. It's be resilient, be insured, be daring, and then be the solution is kind of the overarching identity for the internal branding. All of the communications go out with this. This gets mentioned in their all hands calls. People understand when they see this around offices, like, oh, this is where I go to like look for safety information. So it's pervasive everywhere within the organization. And we've done this with many customers. So again, anyone interested in kind of going through and more in depth with us, let me know. Happy to talk more about that. But having a strong identity really will help you accomplish all of these other things, because you don't have to keep retraining people when you go to schools.
So this is something that I brought up internally, and the thing I think especially, so I report up to our compliance group, which is just lovely. But so of course, I report to risk management, who then reports to compliance, who then reports to legal. So then if you say, hey, you know what, I want our own brand for our continuity solution, they're like, it doesn't drive on multiple levels, right? So have you seen that before? And then how do you get around that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do see that occasionally, and it is always the lawyers that get it on the
I work with lawyers, I understand.
Yeah. So I think we have had to put some caveats on some branding, internal branding before. Do it, kind of like mock it up. There's and then just have it basically all the way done. Don't have you don't have to wait. One of those situations where maybe don't wait till you have permission. Kind of put together a proposal and have something that you can show. In that case, but get permission. But have a good mock-up of it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So
pretty
remember, right,
much.
if you're not asking for resources.
Yeah.
And you're delivering value, sometimes that doesn't have to go through those same channels, right? It may be like doing a little bit of your own taglining on a newsletter or on something like an intranet, right? Because it's not necessarily external. There's ways to, that's how I would approach it. And then also potentially taking ownership of renaming some of the stuff that you all do, right? Like I was talking to a client when I was in San Francisco, they don't do a BIA, they do a resilience survey. This BIA is like a bad taste in everybody's mouth. So it was, hey, guess what? Like this year, no more BIAs, doing resilience surveys. Oh, great, that sounds wonderful. And if you can tweak it and change it, but still get the same information, we kind of start with the end in mind. You're rebranding what otherwise may have been looked at as something that compliance or legal wants us to do. So you can have a little bit of flexibility in how you're branding and positioning and marketing your program without breaking all the rules.
That's that user-centered design. Again, be sensitive of what your culture is internally, but we have customers where we identify, we don't even tell what we're doing. We just say, hey, we're just reaching out to you to gather some information so that we can help you in an emergency. That's it. We don't tell them that's the end. We don't tell them.
Appetite risk assessment, right? Kind of take those acronyms that maybe everyone dreads, right? 4-hour meeting I've been dreading for a year. No, we're not doing that. So creative ways to supposed to hurry because we're standing between everybody and drinks.
Yeah, and we got raffle tickets.
Oh, we got raffle
We got, so we.
Oh, yeah, so let's just
Super
super
fast. Do the last one.
Yeah,
Do the last
oh, the last one. Okay. There's some slide before was just showing all of the coordination for simple events. There really does need to be coordination with a lot of different groups. You're doing a lot of like the same things. It doesn't matter if you're the fastest business continuity team in the world, if the IT teams and everyone else is failing around you, right? So the coordination of things is important. I encourage everybody in this room to do this with your team. What can I give to my other groups around my organization? This can be your, kind of your risk groups, and then out to the business. Maybe identify key business services around on what value we can provide each other, and not what I need from you, but similar kind of slightly different framing. But this will break down all the silos of the organization. It's without fail, that's been successful. So taking some time to sit together and do this will really, really help.
Fantastic.
Thanks, everybody. Yeah.
Thank you.